Hello everyone and welcome back to COPA sessions, and I am your friend Ravi Gupta, who is continuing with these sessions. So far we have covered the relevant important topics which were understanding about COPA, the structure of COPA, which includes the operating concern, the characteristics, values. Then we went ahead and understood how we can maintain the values in terms of the characteristics field itself. And finally, we also went ahead to understand what and how would be the assignments that will control my complete flow of data from standard costing to COPA. Today we're gonna do the session on two important things, that is the planning part and the actuals flow. We are going to continue with actuals flow into various segregated classes, and same goes for planning. Let us first take and understand what planning we can do in COPA. The first thing is, planning in COPA can only be a planned information. That is, this is a informatory activity that we are going to do. There won't be any checks, controls based on the data I am putting across in the plan. For example, when we go on and say about internal order budgeting, or for that case WBS budgeting as an object, they do check and control the actuals to the extent of the budget figures. But the way internal order planning or WBS planning is just an information activity which provides more of a kind of information to the user, that against the following plan data, this is what you have posted as an actual. COPA planning does exactly the same. So if anyone is looking at using COPA for budget perspective, it's not the tool to do so, and it will only cater to information data than to be a data that can check and control in the system. Now, the first question which straight away comes down to the mind is, do I need to do any kind of configuration for planning? The answer to it is, actually there is nothing like a specific configuration that I need to do for my planning in terms of COPA. Let us go to SAP Easy Access screen and try and understand what is that system offers and why there is typically not much of a configuration that is involved. So we will go to again IMG screen, and let us go to controlling, profitability analysis, and to planning. If you see, there are several nodes under planning, but trust me, none of these nodes are required for doing the planning activity in COPA. There are several means and ways of doing planning in COPA. We can manually upload line items. We can manually create the line items as plan cost in COPA, and as a result can maintain the plan data in several means and ways. Now the important thing is, do understand these methods or ways which I am talking about are the user access screens. Means when we are trying to post transactions, there are several ways of posting those planning transaction in COPA, but we don't require a separate kind of a configuration for the same in COPA. Still, we would like to, or rather I would take you to some of the important ones, so that you are clear that in case there can be certain situation where I need to come over here and do the planning part, what are those that I need to play around with. One of the important thing is that even the planning data generates document number. So we need to maintain the document number range for my planning data in COPA. It is exactly the same way we do for our actual postings in COPA. There is nothing of a difference. The only step is that we need to ensure that for the given operating concern and for the planning group, I have my number range maintained. So if I put across my company code, my operating concern, and go to the planning group, and if you see there is a planning in COPA, so there are different kinds of planning that is mentioned all up, and whatever is the relevant planning, select that and maintain a number range for the same. That is the only activity that is required to be done for maintaining the number range. Let's go back. The next important thing is the versions. Versions are the only thing which can be used to extend in planning. What is the use of version? Normally all the standard entries, that is all the postings which we do in the form of actuals, are done under version 0. If we want to have a separate version for just COPA planning, we can create it so that based on that version we can have a complete tracking of whatever data has been planned, and that too specifically for COPA. So in the same parlance, we will create one version like I have been depicting it over here, COPA ID IDES plan version, where I am doing only planning activity and not actual, and for the same there is a planning that will start operating for my COPA. So we just need to create one of the versions and then need to assign the information relevant to my operating concern to it. Like my version is assigned to my operating concern, it has a currency type of operating concern, exchange rate, and the date from which it will start working. That's all. So once I do this, my version is ready, and I will use these versions for any kind of planning which I am going to do for my profitability analysis planning. Rest of the things are of no use for the time being, so let's go to the next part. This complete planning framework is to do with designing the planning layout. Normally whatever standard planning layout is available is more than enough, and we do not require any new kind of layout for our COPA planning. So we can any given day live without this setup, and we don't require the setup. People who are interested to do it can do it depending upon the scenario, but normally a scenario of creating a new planning layout doesn't come up. But anyhow, if somebody is interested, the planning layouts can be prepared in the same way, the way we do prepare the report painters or the report forms. So we will be taking up the report forms preparations and creations at the end, when we will be having our data flows, and then based on whatever we are learning over there, the same can be applied over here for preparing the planning layouts. But for the time being, standard planning layouts are sufficient enough to cater all the needs for a COPA planning. Let's go to manual entry. As the name itself suggests, it is a manual entry, which is the line item entry in the COPA. Again, we don't require any separate kind of a setup for doing the manual planning, and as a result, neither we require a planning layout or a top-down distribution of the planning data. So I'm skipping this part also. Integrated planning. Again, integrated planning is only required when you have any interface activities or anything to do with data which is flowing, the planned information from cost center, orders or project to COPA. Normally, in most of the cases, we don't flow the planned data from cost center, orders or projects. But if we are looking at flowing them, the design or the process of passing the planning data from these objects to COPA would be same as we gonna do for our actuals. So there won't be any difference between actual setups and plan setups in order to pass on the values from these objects to COPA. The only difference would be in terms of number one, the version, that is the plan version that we are using, and number two, the values. So one will have the plan values and the other will have the actual values. The configuration would be almost similar, and we will take it up when we are going to do the actuals. Okay, rest of all are not of any use to us. So let me now go to the very important part of COPA, that is flow of actual values. So let us take the flow of actual values and talk about why and how flow of actual values is relevant. Up till now, so far, we have understood pretty well how the plan information or any kind of information is going to be stored in COPA, right? That means we will have characteristic fields, we will have value fields, and those characteristic fields and value fields will have will rather help us to store data in COPA. And when all the data is stored in COPA, for sure we can use the data from COPA to provide or rather access the reports, since the data is available in a tabular form, or rather in a table, and rather in a table in the combination of characteristics and values for COPA. The question remains just one to be answered, is that yes, we do know where the data gets stored, what are those items, how we can probably map it and associate it, but the question that remains to be answered so far was that how the actuals will flow to COPA. The answer to that how is the flow of actual values over here. We will go through each and every probable option that we have in terms of data flow in COPA. That can be either from a sales order or from a billing or from a project or from direct FI entry or from orders like process orders, internal orders, etc. So there can be multiple, even from cost centers. So there can be multiple scenarios from where data might flow to COPA, and since there can be multiple objects from which the data might flow, there are different kinds of setups which SAP provides for these objects to be done. Let us first take up the situation of flowing the data from sales order. So let's go to sales order, and the very first thing which you're gonna see is the assigning of value fields and quantity fields. Now the question is, what are this assigning of value fields and quantity fields? If you recall, we had characteristics and values, right? Now those values were of typically two types. One was in terms of amount and another was in terms of quantity. Remember the discussions, or rather the session we had initially, probably the second class. So not the second class, rather the third class, where I explained and taken you through the value fields. So if we consider that value fields, the question that comes up in mind is that those value fields will be certain sets of information that is going to be posted somewhere in one or the other modules and finally will flow to COPA. Now the question was how that is going to flow to COPA. That flow is going to get determined through the assignment over here, and this is with relevant to sales order. So any data that flows from the sales order to COPA will be based on the setup that I am doing over here. Now first question is, what is that data that might flow from sales order to COPA? The data could be, number one, the quantity sold, the value of inventory dispatched, different kinds of conditions mapped like revenue, promotion cost, rebates, taxes, discounts, then your marketing expenses, handling expenses, etc., which are part of your pricing conditions in SD. Let's go inside and check what exactly I am referring to. Let us first go to the value fields. As you can see, when I talk about value fields, there are two different options that is available. That means I can assign I can assign the SD conditions to COPA values, and I can even assign the conditions to COPA values. There is an option of even assigning the CRM conditions to COPA values in case I have CRM system, that is SAP CRM system also with us. So let us first go to the SD conditions, and as you can see at the first column you will find all the conditions. What are these conditions? These conditions are nothing but my sales condition type, the condition type which has been used across for my selling purposes. If you see the examples like rebates, like rather different kinds of rebates, may it be with regard to the group, material, customer, sales based, all those rebates are there. Then the handling charges, the discount charges, the freight part, the specific fees, these will all be my condition type, and these condition type can be the one which are getting recovered from customer, I mean to say can be the expenses which are to be recovered from customers, and as a result would be a part over here. Similarly, all the revenues might be you can have the condition as price, or you can have a condition as product cost. All the revenue conditions will also be mapped over here against the valuation field, against the value field. Now the important part is there can be multiple condition getting assigned to one value field, but there can't be multiple value field getting assigned to one condition. Okay, so there can be many is to one, but can't be one is to many. Okay, second, these assignments are nothing but a flow of amount that is going to get captured based on the SD conditions to the value field of COPA. So whatever would be the amount in those conditions at the time of transaction would flow from the condition to the COPA value fields. This assignments mostly covers all the data which are relevant or which needs to be picked from the sales side, like my COGS information, my revenue, my promotional cost, my rebates, my discounts, my duty which is part of my pricing, I mean the taxes and duties which is part of my pricing, any other kind of reimbursements, or rather any other kind of expenses that needs to be charged off on the customer. So handling, freight, all these cases would be a part of these assignments. Again, the objective is that the assignments will provide you information independently for each and every line item. So if I am maintaining the freight as one of the assignments to a given value field, say freight, then in the COPA report I can access the quantum of freight for a duration of period, for different customers, for different orders, for regions, for profit centers, so on and so forth. So that means I can access the value or analyze the quantum of rate based on different parameters. The benefit obviously is that based on such an activity, for sure I am going to get, or for sure I am going to as a person earn out the decision making or analytical information for item like freight. So there can be different important items that might be a part during the sales which needs to be assigned, and we will make sure that all of them is assigned. Again, these particular designs are done after a discussion with the business, because business can only let you know that what are the conditions or the line items that they want to look in COPA reporting, or if they want to group out several of the line items into one. Like there can be multiple kinds of revenue itself which they might group out and want to see as a single view, instead of mapping each and every of those line items to one-on-one basis in COPA. Considering all those factors, this assignment gets done, and this is one of important activity in COPA setup. This end button is for the transferring of positive and negative, that is negative and positive values. Do keep the tick for these cases because it is required in nature. The way we did it, or we discussed for SD, similar way we can do it for MM. The functionality remains the same. The condition types that are getting used for the pricing in MM is being linked or associated, or rather assigned to the value fields. But there are few factors that you need to consider before doing it. What are those? The factors are the first thing which comes in mind when we talk about that we can do it in MMS, that okay, great, all the POs or rather the purchase orders have my pricings and will have condition, so I can assign those conditions and make the data flow from PO itself. This is excellent. We can have all the raw materials which I am procuring or the inventory which I am procuring, the information of them available. True, but if I do so, will my COPA report be correct or become incorrect? That is the question. And why do I raise it? If you recall, I am already putting up the data of COGS, that is cost of goods sold, and the breakup of COGS from the standard costing to the system, or rather to the COPA value fields. As a result, if the data is already flowing, we need to understand that flowing any further material cost or any relevant cost which is already a part of my inventory value might not result in an incorrect information. In order to ensure that such an activity is not happening, we should be quite clear about the fact that we do only assign for MM, or rather the material management side, those conditions which are not adding up to inventory or resulting in reaching or accumulating to the COGS values. If there is something which is apart from the COGS values and can be required for my analysis purpose, Yes, any given day we can assign the conditions of those items to the value fields in COPA and use them for our purpose. Obviously, since we don't the way we are doing it for SD and MM, we can do it for the CRM to COPA assignments too. So far it was for value fields. Just give me a minute, guys. So we were talking about the value fields, and now we will go to the next option, that is for quantity fields. Let us see what is there for quantity fields. Let us go inside, and as you see, in case of quantity, mostly the weights, or as I say, the informations with regard to these quantity fields are nothing but the information which we want to track in terms of our analysis. Like generally as an organization, we do like to know the informations like revenue or the promotion cost, discounts, etc. is against how much quantity sold. So that means it should be that we have to capture the sales quantity along with the amounts and other relevant informations. Besides that, even at the time of production, it becomes often relevant to find out the total quantity produced, because there can be a case where the variance or any other posting that flows in could be for the entire production cost, for the entire product, sorry guys, I was referring that when the quantities are tracked, even they are tracked from the production point of view, because when data flows from production as like the variance, that can be for the complete production done. That means complete quantity of production done. Now since we are dealing with the information of the quantity sold only, we as a result have to reduce the variance to that extent in order to get to the right data access. For all these purposes, the information needs to be put across from different places to here, and in COPA over here, like for example, as you can see, build quantity is one option, but besides that, even there is a gross quantity and ordered quantity which has been put across. Now the ordered quantity will give you information in terms of the sales order quantity information, but whereas the gross quantity might be the one which will let you know about the delivered quantity in terms of gross weight. But although you might be billing at a net weight and not at a gross weight level, so this end-to-end information will help you in different kinds of report access and can be passed on obviously from the SD module at present, that is from the billing itself, to COPA. This much is from sales side. Let's go and talk about the billing side. If you see that there is no difference between the two items, that is the sales and the billing. Even the setups are exactly the same. That means the setups which we were seeing at the order level is the same setup which we can see at the billing level. The only difference which we can refer to is that if there is a scenario that you are not having any order but straight away a billing through a contract or something, then you can put across those setups in billing itself. But SAP as a whole provides the same setup for informations to be tracked, or rather moved from order or from billing to COPA. Do remember, when we create a sales order, nothing flows to COPA. When we do the delivery, nothing flows to COPA. All the information right from order or at that point of delivery flows to COPA along with the billing informations when we finally conclude the billing. That means when we post the billing entries. Further, if there is an agreement scenario, if there is a rebate agreement scenario, the data will flow for COPA from the rebate scenario when we are settling the contract for rebate item. So it's always at the last final postings or transaction that the entire chain of information flows from SD to COPA. This covers up our topic on sales order and billing. We will continue with orders, projects or direct postings, and then finally conclude the variance, which will overall close out on our flow of actuals to a large extent. And once we are done with this, then we have completed with most of the setup part, and we will go ahead with scenario process part, because that is more critical and important, vital area to understand. So let us get back in the next session for our continuation of flow of account actual values. Thanks everyone. Let's meet again in the next session.